Yo, this is the ancient Texan. You know, when someone says their first love was something, well, I was an extractive metallurgist most of my life until America kind of got rid of extractive metallurgy. And I want to talk about my first love, copper. I went to work for a secondary copper smelter, a smelter that used scrap as its feed source. And we made 125,000 tons of copper a year. 125,000 tons. That's a lot of copper. And we made it all from scrap and residues and waste material. Well, the end of that story is the Chinese first started taking all the copper scrap from the West Coast, and we were on the East Coast, but eventually they started sucking all the copper scrap uh, from all of the United States and put us out of business. Now I want you to jump forward to today. We make about half, maybe 60% of the copper we need in this country. We've been we've been waiting for permits for copper mines for 20 years, one out in Tucson, and we're just now starting to give some permits, which takes about 7 years, best case scenario in this country, 23 years in the case of this one mine in Tucson. So we got a shortage of copper because we don't give permits. Trump just announced a 50% tariff on copper coming into this country. What's also going on right now is there's thousands of thefts this year of copper wiring and cable. Like somebody takes down the wiring that goes to a city, cuts out a section of it. Takes millions of dollars to repair all this stuff, and they get hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars for the copper scrap. And that's been carried on by people that need drugs, and they found out that they can steal copper. Once they steal the copper and sell it, then they can buy their drugs. Now, the tariff's supposed to somehow encourage production of copper in the U.S., but the biggest problem with copper production is you can't get permits. And I blame that primarily on the Democrats and this legalistic system we've set up that anybody can sue and not in my backyard, we don't want it here, and they can hold up things for years. Meanwhile, the rest of us are running out of copper. Not very important. Go to turn on your light switch. Say how unimportant it is. Go turn the ignition on in your car. Say how important it is. Look at your phone, all the electronics you use. Everything uses copper to carry the electricity. It's fundamental to our way of life. And Trump is putting a 50% tariff on. What is that going to do? It's going to make anything that needs copper really expensive because the price is already jacked up just in the US, not the rest of the world, because we can't get copper in that we need. And that's before the tariff's gone into effect. People are already anticipating what's happening. Everything that you use that has electricity in it has copper. Everything. I don't know if there's an exception. You can sometimes use aluminum, but that's not a cheap metal either to carry electricity, and they use that in some, you know, outdoor cabling, but it's not common and it's not as good. Now, Copper, you need a mine. It's fundamental. You got to have a hole in the ground if you want to have copper. There are places that produce copper around the world a lot. Chile, the biggest, Peru, a few other countries in Latin America. There's some mines in Africa. And we used to have good relationship with those countries, and American companies uh, made capital investments there to get part of the copper they produce. But you know where all that goes now? China. And the copper we do mine, we don't have enough copper refineries. I got my master's paid for by Phelps Dodge, who had a copper refinery in El Paso. Worked at a copper smelter, a Sarco, in El Paso to do my master's degree. Worked on removal of oxygen from copper at Ohio State National Science Foundation. That's been cut out too. Then I worked in a secondary copper smelter. Then I went and worked for a nickel, copper, cobalt hydrometallurgical facility in Amex Nickel, New Orleans. Then I went to Anaconda, at one time the biggest company in the world, Anaconda Copper. When I got out of school, we made more copper in the state of Arizona than the rest of the world put together. Now we're making half of what we need. NIMBYs, not in my backyard. They think they did something great for the world. They didn't do something great for the world. I've worked in Peru at a copper smelter. There's a copper, lead, zinc smelter. Made other metals too, like precious metals and gold. But we put like 9 tons of lead into the air every day in Peru. Every kid in the city had lead poisoning. Every single kid. They monitored me and took blood samples because I had high lead, because I walked to work and walked through the city where the people were, where the people lived. So I had higher lead than the rest of the engineers that were there from the U.S. That smelter got closed down, but the people that live in that city, I'm sure they'll have lead poisoning the rest of their lives. I was 50 at the time, and the men that lived there, I'm 5'9" and over 200 pounds, 220. I was the second tallest person in the town and the second biggest person. And I was the oldest person. They couldn't believe people could live and still walk around at 50 because they were so used to being killed by lead. And arsenic, antimony, bismuth, tellurium. I've seen pipes coming out of a copper refinery there, wastewater that had arsenic, the whole spectrum, heavy arsenic, antimony, bismuth, copper, going into a river where kids were playing, big pipe, like 2 feet around, a big flow of water into the river, right next to where the kids are playing and where the women are washing their clothes at. And why were we there? Because we got kicked out of the U.S., not in my backyard. You didn't. And we just go ahead and buy the copper from Peru and the rest of the world, or like right now we're buying cobalt that goes into the batteries for the electric cars. We think we're doing good, I used to work at manage the cobalt circuit in New Orleans. We got pushed out of the U.S. You think you did the world good? The kind of job we did was so much better than what's happening in these third world countries, which we're becoming because not in my backyard is one of many problems. And we think we don't have a problem. Copper alone just shows the insanity that's going on in this country. This is just, it's so absurd that we're in this situation. We've got copper in the ground that NIMBYs, and I would blame mostly Democrats, and I am a Democrat most of the time, but I don't want to be Democrat or a Republican because both parties are being too damn stupid. But as we sink into this hole, copper serves and how we're handling things just serves as a great example of American stupidity. Don't know if you care, but I kind of like this country and I hate the fact that what we're doing to it just out of stupidity. And Trump and the Republicans, what's going on right now is just, they've just optimized stupidity. Anyway, this is the Ancient Texan. Really sad today what's happening to America.